Hello, my fellow nerds, and welcome to the Nerd Empire. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today, and I hope you all will enjoy today's reaction video. With that being said, let's get right into it, shall we? Okay, this is a video by Isaac Butterfield, and it is titled Goodbye. Now, for context on the title, from what I've seen of the thumbnail, it's not him saying goodbye to YouTube or anything. It is goodbye to a different subject that he is talking about. So, let us see what this video has to say, and enjoy.
In this video, we are saying goodbye to they, them pronouns. I'm going to tell you exactly.
Share of American youth who identify as transgender in rapid decline study. 9.2% of students identified as neither male nor female in 2023 versus 3% in 2025. Well, you have to identify as one or the other because those are the only two that actually exist in reality.
Why in just a second, but to start this video off, I'm going to blow your minds with something absolutely ridiculous. Kindergarten kids are being offered non-binary gender pronouns by the education department in one Aussie state.
This is so bad. This stuff needs to be put into law everywhere in the world, that this stuff should not be allowed anywhere near kids under 18. Nowhere near kids under 18. And if any hospital, school, or anything brings it near kids, they can get in legal trouble. That's what needs to happen. Because this is just horrible.
In this video, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you exactly why people are no longer identifying as they, thems.
Because it makes no sense. They, them doesn't refer to a singular person. You're basically saying, people, I have mental issues. I am more than one person.
Before we get into that, and on the topic, in the state of Queensland, in Australia, are being offered non-binary gender pronouns. We are talking about 4 to 5-year-olds being offered non-binary pronouns. Parents in Queensland were asked if they would like they, them pronouns used for their preschool age child in official paperwork. So this is even younger than that. This is 3 to 4-year-olds. Each November, kindergarten teachers in the state prepare what is called a transition statement for children.
I'm sorry, for subjects being taught in school, the mandatory subjects should be math, history, science, what we call here in the States English class, which basically just teaches, proper grammar and, that in proper speech, that sort of stuff. Those 4 should be mandatory. Also some sort of civics class as well, or civics/careers class. And the rest of the stuff should be taught about everyday life, taxes, bills, money, housing, all that sort of stuff people will need to know for everyday life. The LGBT stuff, I personally think if you want to learn about that stuff should only be taught in colleges or anything after that. It should never be taught in preschool, elementary school, middle school, or high school. It should not be taught in any of those because those are minors. Those are kids. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere near those. You need the mandatory classes that need to be taught and the other things that they need to know for everyday life. That's it. Any teachers that bring this sort of dumbass shit into the school, into their classes, and tries to teach their kids, the parents' kids, this stuff, needs to be like for the first or second, like for the first time offense, they need to be punished and warned. And if they try to do it again, they lose their job.
Age 4 and 5 going into primary school the next year. That's a big moment for a lot of kids. They're about to take that next step into big school. And you really got to get your pronouns sorted before you start big school. You don't want to open up a Vegemite sandwich at lunch and forget your fucking cock, do you? I don't know what that means, but you know what I mean. The document outlines the child's academic and artistic strengths, artistic strengths, or areas they might need to focus on more. Yes, you should focus on your gender more as a 4-year-old. The report is then given to parents, and if they choose, to the primary school where the child will attend. So,
I'm sorry, but if you are a parent worrying about this sort of stupid ass thing about a kid who's 4 or 5 who doesn't understand one iota of this dumbass shit, you're failing as a parent already. They're kids. They don't understand this stuff. They care more about playing with their friends or playing outside or getting dirty or other children's stuff. They don't even understand it to even care about it.
It's all about providing information for the teachers and the parents. I get it. But under the gender section, this is where everyone had the issue. That's where parents could choose whether or not they would like their child referred to as he, him, she, her, or they, them. Now, you may be forgiven for thinking that, none of these kids actually chose they, them. None of the parents actually did that. It was just there because it was part of the report software, a part of the click down menu. It's just there. No, 46 parents across the state had nominated they, them pronouns for their child this year. 46. Let's call it a round number. 50 kids aged 4 to 5 are choosing non-gender specific pronouns. I've got a lot of questions for those parents. My first question would be, were you involved in this decision? In fact, how involved were you in the decision of your child being non-binary? I would very much like to know that. And do you have blue hair? I do think that some kids are just...
Yeah, with kids and with your beliefs as an adult, you shouldn't be pushing your beliefs or forcing how you think onto your kids like that. You may believe in this fantasy world, they, them bullshit, but you shouldn't be putting that on your children. Let your kids be kids. Let them grow up how they grow up. All a parent should be teaching them is how to show respect, have good morals, have a conscience, and making sure they don't hurt themselves, get in trouble with the law, and, make sure they're fed and clothed, that stuff. A parent shouldn't be teaching their kids about this dumbass woke shit. It shouldn't even be anywhere near a kid. So just, if you're trying to push that stuff onto your kid, you are failing as a parent. That's just... factually, you're failing as a parent at that point.
Just born in the wrong body. But is it 50 every single year in one state of Australia? There's not that many kids going to school there. But maybe all of this is coming to an end because we are seeing downtrending numbers when it comes to people who are identifying as non-binary, meaning back in the early 2020s, there was a lot more who were putting their hand up saying, I'm a they, them. And now people are just like, no, that ain't me. Now, this story was reported on by Vice, which is very, very interesting because they, over the last decade, have continually proven themselves as extremely, for lack of a better term, woke, to the point where people make fun of them for how left-leaning, how woke, how progressive they are. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, this video is brought to you by the great people at Crush Organics. Crush Organics is the world's leading supplier of high-grade CBD products to keep you calm, focused, relaxed, calm, cool, and collected. I have been sponsored by Crush Organics for a very long time, and I very much appreciate them and everything they do. These people are decent human beings, and that's what I really like about them. With an amazing collection of oils that include the Peppermint Day Oil, Carver Infused Night Oil, Broad Spectrum Muscle Recovery Oils, the Platinum Oils, and the all-new Maximum Impact Diamond Oil, they are a brand that has something for everyone. I love the pain cream. It's fantastic, particularly for me being a tall human being. My back's crook, terrible, awful. I thoroughly enjoy that. And ladies and gentlemen, they've got a massive sale on right now. If you use the code ISAAC-VIP, spelled exactly like this, you will get 50% off. Yes, that's right. These are huge Black Friday sales, ladies and gentlemen. They are coming to you right now. Go and support Crush Organics, and let's get back into the video. But here's the story. Kids aren't identifying as non-binary anymore.
Because it's fucking stupid. It doesn't exist in reality. So these people who are identifying as, stupid made up shit just to feel, unique are seen as nothing more than mentally ill by people who live in reality and think logically.
For a while, it felt like every college classroom came with the pronoun check-ins and name tags that doubled as identity statements. It sounds like they're being a bit mean here, old Vice. They then went mainstream fast. Now, new data shows fewer students are using the non-binary label, suggesting that the conversation around gender may be changing again. Ooh, scary. I think we should probably, at this point of the video, work out what the fuck we're talking about. like what is non-binary, what is gender non-conforming. People who are non-binary may choose one of these pronouns or labels. They may be non-binary, they may be gender fluid, they may be agender, they may be gender queer, they may be another 52 different options. Okay, I know I haven't narrowed it down or explained it all, but no one really knows what any of this means. Now, I asked ChatGPT, I said, what does actually happen to you when you feel you are non-binary? What are the symptoms of being non-binary? And I'm about to provide you with ChatGPT's answer. I hope it's very, very politically correct. ChatGPT said there are no symptoms because this is not an illness or disorder. I choose not to respond to that at all.
I'm sorry, but yes, it is. It's called gender dysphoria. It is a mental disorder, a mental illness, if you will. And it has been proven to be so.
Nothing to say. But this all comes from a new report from political scientist Eric Kaufman, who suggests that fewer Gen Z students are identifying outside the male-female binary, the idea that you can either be a man or a woman or a boy or a girl. That ridiculous idea. Yeah, wow, Gen Z is actually doing something that doesn't make them huge pieces of shit for once. That's unbelievable. Now, back in 2020, there was a survey done by the Trevor Project.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 out of the 12 are actually real. The rest are just made up mental illnesses.
They found that 25% of LGBTQIA plus youth identified as non-binary. Now, in other parts of the world, it's closer to 7%. In fact, the Kaufman study that we're talking about here found that at Brown University, 2.6% of students identified as non-binary in 2025, half the percentage that was recorded in 2020 and 2023. Andover, the number dropped from 7.5 to 3% in just 2 years. We are talking about continual drops. Statistics that go across the board of halving the numbers of non-binary people and students across these universities. These numbers are dwindling. If you looked at anything else, if you looked at a stock and saw a stock halve over the last 5 years, you probably would make a pretty fair bet that that stock is not going to be around too much longer. So, let's have a good fucking think here, ladies and gentlemen, and ask the most important question in this video. Why? Why do you think it's happened? Let me ask you that. Let me know in the comment section down below. I have my theories. The internet has their own theories, and the media has their own theories, and that usually is, you know, blaming bigots and blaming white people and white straight men, all that type of shit, the usual suspects. But I think that the truth may well be not overly pleasant for those who believe in the woke principle. Perhaps it's because it's not as edgy as it once was. A lot of people...
I think a lot of people jumped on this thing because they're known as bandwagon jumpers. They saw everybody doing it. They saw how much attention these people were getting out of doing it. And they decided to jump on the bandwagon and get their like little 15 minutes of fame themselves. They didn't want to feel left out. They wanted to feel included. They wanted to feel unique. You know, all this sort of stupid ass shit. And then we ended up getting like the 5 million different mental illnesses that came along with only the two actual genders. So it's just I'm glad that people are starting to, you know, come back to reality and starting to figure out like, hey, this is really dumb. Why are we continuing this mental illness? So it's just, I think our entire society needs to wake up and realize that none of this stuff is really good. It's all just stupidity.
Suggests that the rise in transgender people was a lot like the goth era. A lot of people were doing it because it was the edgy thing to do. And now, because it's not edgy anymore, people who are in that age bracket are just like, I don't want to do that anymore. That's what all the old people do. So maybe they're turning away from it. Maybe it's not as punk rock as it once was. That may not make any sense to you or I, but we must remember we're talking about teenagers here. Some before puberty and some after. And they are all... These kids want to rebel, and this is just not rebellious anymore. I mean, I guess it's still a little bit rebellious to tell your parents who love you more than anything in the world and have spent all this money on you and looking after you and all this type of shit for the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years that you're fucking omnigender. That's pretty rebellious. That would make me as a father just go, you what? I think what's actually happening here is we are developing an immunity. Yeah. What do I mean by that? Well, think about it like this. It is a social contagion, a feeling, an identity that's spread through words, through videos, through text, through podcasts, through books. And when it grows in the minds of the most impressionable amongst us. And it doesn't stop at one, it doesn't stop at two, it keeps growing and going and looking for people.
I think the other thing is like people are starting to grow up and realize how dumb this is. And they're basically growing out of it and realizing that they look back on themselves and say, why was I being that stupid? Why am I doing this? Some of these people are actually, developing their brain into a functioning way and realizing what they're doing was not the actual logically smart thing to do.
To, for lack of a better term, infect, if you go with this way of thinking. Now, what doesn't help is people are scared to talk about this contagion. Now, I'm not taking away the fact that some people are born intersex, some people are born in the wrong bodies, but I'm just saying the numbers are so vastly high, or they were, that it makes me think that something else was going on. I may be wrong, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but that is my general feeling here. And in a world where all we're talking about is feelings, you better listen to mine. I do feel that the Gen Zs out there, though, are building an immunity to all of this shit. They're not allowing it to become a part of them. They're seeing what the ones who are older than them did and what they went through, and they were like, no, not for me. And now they're not allowing that social contagion to take over. They're doing something crazy by saying, hey, let's just go back to being boys and girls. And if you are trans, just pick one. I think that's the general consensus. In psychology, a social contagion refers to behaviors and emotions or beliefs spreading through a social influence, like trends, slang, or attitudes catching on within, peer groups, like vaping or even smoking back in the day. So we must ask ourselves this very difficult question. Are people becoming non-binary, or were they becoming non-binary because that's how they actually are or were, or is it because they were being socially rewarded for doing so? Putting that flag in your bio on Instagram immediately gets you some brownie points within your community. These are all very unpopular questions to ask, but in a free society,
I think the very, very, very vast majority of the people who were doing it were just doing it for attention or, social brownie points, all that stuff. They weren't doing it because that's how they actually felt. They were doing it because, they were trying to be championed for doing so. And a lot of these people are seeing that they're not getting the championing that they were once getting. They're just going back to being regular about it.
We should be able to ask them, and you should be able to, if you disagree with me, argue back. I think what these halving of numbers actually are just us reverting to the actual numbers of trans and non-binary people. We saw such a ballooning number of people who feel this way, or are this way, over the past 5-10 years, that this is just a way of self-correcting. Perhaps. And it's these numbers, the 2%, the 2.5%, the 3%, that have been the numbers that have been stable for 5 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades. Over the past few decades, at the very least, that's where they've been sitting. And then all of a sudden we saw this huge rise. I probably shouldn't do that on camera. Editor Connor, blur everything I just did out. I found, the end of this article from Vice to be very profound. They said, maybe the real story isn't decline, but it's recalibration. After years of expanding definitions, some Gen Zers seem ready to move past identity politics and focus on simply being themselves. Now, I don't know exactly what the writer meant or the author meant when they wrote that, but here's what I take away from that. We can only hope that we as a people, slowly but surely, forget about all this gender, skin color, where you're from, your sexuality, what version of ADHD, how many autism points you have. Just forget about that shit and focus on just you. Stop worrying about all this outside fucking noise. Stop playing the victim and live your life. Ladies and gentlemen and the remaining non-binaries, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about this video. Be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Be dick stinks. Toodaloo au revoir. Bye-bye.
Now that, I think it is true. It's a lot of us, it's going through like a recalibration. It's, people are starting to wake up to how stupid a lot of this is, and I hope that once society and us, we go back to how it was, it won't ever go back to this again. Well, that is the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give a like and subscribe. I post videos 3 to 5 days a week here. I also post videos over on my other channel for gaming as well, so please make sure to give that a look-see, see if you enjoy that as well. I also stream anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week as well. Links to all my social medias will be on my YouTube page. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.